Like this was at Tiger's Jam, right? Wasn't that it was at Tiger Jam and everything?
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. What did you guys play poker? Would you have liked to get involved in that?
Yeah.
That's high rush. Those two guys with some money.
Yeah, all in. I'm going all in.
I bet you have a great poker face.
Yeah.
Tibbs and I, not so much.
No, come on, Tibbs.
Tibbs,
I'm in the front of the plane. The back of the plane, that's where the card plane is.
No, man, I don't know what Tibbs is talking about right now, guys. I don't know.
Got him.
And with that, we welcome you back to Get Up on this Memorial Day. We come to you live from above the Heineken River deck at Pier 17, and let me give you a rundown of what we have coming your way in this hour. We get up first and foremost with Kawhi and the Raptors. They rolled the dice in the biggest possible way and came up huge winners. We have plenty to look at with the Raptors and their run to meet that man, maybe, in the finals. The Warriors' wait is almost over. Is their reign almost done as well? Can they beat Toronto if KD doesn't play? And in this hour, Stephen A., live from LA. We've got questions. You know he's got answers. He's live with us. All that and more as we roll on. It's an hour of Get Up on this Memorial Day starting right now. And we start with Get Up and Go. Take you through some of the big stories of the weekend. The Yankees had a 7-game win streak come to an end in KC. Royals walk it off. Whit Merrifield's RBI single, bottom of 10. Yankees had come from 7-1 down to tie it in the ninth. Despite that loss, the Yankees maintain a 2-game lead over the Rays in the American League East. Indy 500 yesterday. Vive la France! Pole sitter Simon Pagenaud is your winner. Très bien, there's a celebration right now on the Champs-Élysées at La Tour Eiffel. I just got Damon Jones laughing hysterically at my French. He's the first French-born driver to win the Indy 500 since Gaston Chevrolet in 1920. And he winds up winning. Très bien. All right, to the NFL. All kidding aside, new Patriots tight end Benjamin Watson wrote on Facebook he's facing a 4-game suspension for a failed test of the NFL substance policy back in March. He was signed to a 1-year, $3 million deal by the Pats on May 9th as they look to fill the void left behind by the retired tight end Rob Gronkowski. We'll see how, if at all, this influences that. And then there's hockey, as I mentioned briefly before. Stanley Cup final begins tonight in Boston. Bruins hosting the Cinderella Blues, who had the worst record in hockey in January, were able to sneak into the playoffs, now have a chance to avenge a loss in the 1970 Stanley Cup Finals to the Bruins, and they are playing the song Gloria all over the city of St. Louis. Meanwhile, NBA, the finals are set. Raptors finish off the Bucks. Game 6 Saturday night, coming from 15 down behind Kawhi Leonard. He finished with 27 points, 17 rebounds, 7 assists. It is the first trip to the NBA Finals in Toronto franchise history, and that brings us to Kevin Durant, who continues recovering from a strained right calf. And he is unlikely at this point to suit up in Game 1 on Thursday night. Now, he met with the media for the first time since the injury over the weekend, and he addressed the notion that the team plays better without him. There was some very interesting stuff in this exchange. Wanted you to hear it right now.
How have you thought about their play? How have you thought about their play?
Our play?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Do you feel like there is that almost split where it's like you and them?
Most definitely. I mean, it's been that way since I got here. It's the Warriors and KD, you know what I'm saying? And I understand that. And I felt like my teammates and the organization know exactly what I've done here on and off the court to become a part of this culture. So I know what I bring to the team. But I also know that a lot of people on the outside, don't like to see us together.
I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
In so many different ways. And here's where this begins. We're going to get in a minute into whether or not they need him to win the championship. But as I looked at I read those quotes, but this is the first time I've seen the look on his face when he said it. And here's what I find fascinating. So many people had to sacrifice so much for these Warriors to win as they're winning. Mm-hmm. They may be on the verge of winning a 3rd straight championship. That is obviously an extraordinarily rare accomplishment in the history of the sport, right? Three-peating is a legendary feat. And look at all the sacrifice that was made for that. Yeah. Look what Draymond Green sacrificed. Look at his game flourishing with KD off the floor. Steph Curry, who you're saying is one of the 5 best players in the sport.
Yes.
Well, no one talks about him that way now because Kevin Durant is there. Mm-hmm. But who really sacrificed more than KD? That's the thought that jumped into my mind. Because look at the way he is now viewed. It really is the Warriors and KD in a lot of people's minds. And while he has emerged as maybe the 2nd best player in the world, if you want to continue to maintain LeBron in the 1st spot, the amount of disrespect that he receives to some degree, I think is also fascinating. What did you think when you looked at his face?
Kevin has brought a lot to that team. Now, they were a great team before they got there. And I think it also said a lot about the guys that were there that actively recruited him, and that's who Draymond is. I know I've gone after free agents, and then Draymond has jumped in on some guys. Once Draymond jumps in, you have no chance to get that player. I have recruited someone, and Draymond and Kevin went to visit with the player right after they won the chance, like 2 days after. Once the agent told me that who was visiting, I said, we're done with him. That's the impact that they have. But Kevin has sacrificed a lot. And I know from coaching against them, I'd rather Kevin not play. Right? When Kevin's playing, that adds a lot to that team. So let's not mistake how great they are with Kevin.
And DJ, is some of that narrative that Greeny's talking about because everyone does kind of feel like KD's going to leave the Warriors after this year?
I think it's been so much talk about it all year that's where the separation comes from. And you say the Golden State Warriors and Kevin Durant because of those things. But to Kevin's credit, we haven't heard him say anything about free agency except, I'm going to make the decision when the time comes. Look, the Golden State Warriors are a good team if KD doesn't play, but a great team when he does play. And I think they're going to need him in this series to eventually win it all.
We will talk about that in a second, but I want to briefly, before we get to that point, touch on something you said earlier in the context of Malcolm Brogdon's return for Milwaukee during their series. So we know now KD's not playing game one, which would suggest he's not playing game two. Now the series continues. Remember, they open in Toronto. Yeah. So let's say the Raptors, let's say it's a split. Let's say it's 1-1. As it goes forward, obviously Kevin Durant comes back and is able to try and play. You're going to play him. It's not even worth discussing whether you play him or not. But how do you integrate him back, having missed as much time as he has in game 3 or 4 or 5 of the NBA Finals?
Well, I would say the biggest thing is we haven't seen anything with Kevin on the court. Yeah. That's a big concern. Like we've seen Cousins working out. You'd say he's probably closer than KD. So that factors into it. But I think once Kevin is able to play, that will be a seamless transition for them. And they've shown. They've been without people before. They've been great with people being out. And they've done it in all ways. When Steve Kerr was out, they won that way. When this is a great team. Once Draymond went into that starting lineup, that changed everything for that franchise.
But I just want to confirm quickly, you sound like you're saying you do not expect to see KD in these finals at all. That's what I feel like you're saying.
What I'm looking at is, and it's good to see him publicly speaking now, but you haven't seen anything with him on the court.
And you have seen Boogie, so it almost makes you think.
So there's steps you have to take to come back to play. And usually you hear, okay, he's practicing with us, he's taking contact. You haven't seen any of that. Yeah. So that would be a big concern for me.
Yeah, so not even spot shooting.
Yeah. Well, unless they're just keeping it all under wraps, which they could be doing from a standpoint of strategy to try to throw everybody off. Okay, you think that the Warriors need KD to win. We'll get your, to win the finals. We'll get your opinion in just a second, a little more. But what do you think? Do they need KD to win this, the Warriors?
Well, it certainly would help. I think he puts them over the top. I still think it'll be like the one thing about the Warriors right now, they're playing with a great edge. They know they're shorthanded. And the intensity that they're playing with, the intelligence they're playing with, and the fact that they've been through it so many different times. So all of their players have great experience in a championship series. So I think that factors into it as well.
But if Kevin Durant never plays, do you still believe Golden State wins the series?
I do.
Huh.
You?
Yes.
You believe they win?
I believe they win. And Golden State, as they're constructed right now without Kevin Durant, don't get me wrong, they are a good basketball team and they've been in battles before. I just think with KD, it just takes them to a whole nother strategy.
Understood. But if he doesn't come back and play, and I had Marcus Spears in here talking about having had that injury himself once, and Richard Jefferson talking about it. Those guys don't think there's any chance KD plays.
Said the same thing.
They don't think there's any chance KD winds up playing in these finals at all. But obviously none of us know. We're not there. We're not inspecting him on a day-to-day basis. But if he does not play at all, who wins the NBA championship? Warriors or Raptors?
Golden State in 7 games.
7 games without him.
Yes.
Okay, and you think the same?
Yes.
Yeah. The official Greeny prediction, with KD, I would take the Warriors in 5. Without KD, I would take the Warriors in 6. I just think that they are the better team, and they have looked, and I really appreciated the way he made sure He corrected the reporter who asked him, and I'm not criticizing the reporter because I understand. I understand the mentality. How do you feel about the way they're playing?
Our team.
And he's like, no, this is us. We're playing. I get it. I respect that totally.
And their entire team is playing that way.
Yeah.
They're all talking team, and that's important.
It does make you think, like, would he stay there? Maybe he would stay there.
If I'm just going to throw this out here. You play to win.
Yeah.
And when they win, their third title in a row, I'm not leaving that. I want to keep winning because
even if they've done it without him.
Yeah, I understand all the narrative. You go get your own team and legacy and all that stuff. But when your career is over, they're going to say one or two things. I had 7 rings or I had none. And if he stays in Golden State,
I think they're motivated to be the all-time greatest team.
I don't
think
see
that's
how you
what's
leave.
driving them right now.
I do not see how you leave a situation where you won 3 championships in a row. I don't see it.
All right, let's talk Giannis because we need to do that as well. He has an MVP caliber season, but it did come to a disappointing end. He finished with just 21 points on 7 for 18 shooting in the Bucks Game 6 loss. And afterwards, Giannis in his post-game presser came to an abrupt conclusion. He walked out. Take a listen.
You guys have talked a lot about how at this point, sometimes it takes experience. I'm wondering if now that you have some of that experience, if you see more validity to that point or what you think about that now that you've gone through it.
Milton.
Okay,
Chris Middleton was funny there.
That obviously, yes, that became the gift. It requires some explanation and it's complicated, but that's an ESPN reporter asking the question, and she had written a story that a lot of people believed made Giannis mad, and that's why he walked out, and she was on ESPN radio saying she does not believe that's why he walked out. He was just expressing his frustration. One way or the other on that, how about that fact, the notion that he kind of, there it is, your season's just ended. You're the team. I mean, it is Giannis and the Bucks, and you walk out of a press conference because maybe because there's a reporter that you have an issue with, maybe because you are just so frustrated that you just couldn't answer one more question. Would that be of any concern to you?
No, not at all. In having watched Giannis go through his career early on, I love Giannis. I love his makeup. I love what he stands for. I love who he is. He's emotional. Obviously, he wants to get his team to the finals. It didn't happen. It's tough to go up there right after a loss like that. And he was probably looking for anything to exit. I don't know, but in just talking to the people that have coached him in the past, some of the people that coach him now, his teammates, they all love him. They say this he's different. This guy works like crazy, and it's not him saying he's working. It's not him posting pictures of him working. It's what other people that are with him are saying about him and what he's done for that franchise. His impact on winning is significant. He's not only brought out the best in himself, he's brought the best out in his teammates. To be 24 years old and to have the type of season that the Bucks did, he gets a lot of credit for that. So if he, walks off the stage like he's emotional, and losing bothers him, and I love that about him.
You have a specific example of losing bothering him, too, that you were bringing up to us earlier. We're going to see it right here, but go ahead and get us started on it.
Yeah, so this was Game 6 against the Bucks, and it's the end of the game, and he just winds up and he wipes Dunleavy out, and I think that the big thing for him was, again, the frustration. And you can look at how skinny he is in that picture.
Yeah.
This guy's added 40 pounds of muscle, and he's just worked incredibly hard on his body. Now, let me add this about Dunleavy.
Yeah.
Dunleavy's thrown a lot of punches in his time as well. But I love that he hated to lose. And the way this guy has worked every night in the gym, practices, does it he's not, I don't think he'll ever leave Milwaukee.
But just wait, hold on, sorry. Say that again?
I don't think he'll ever leave Milwaukee. I think he wants to do it there. And the way he's been, what he's done for that franchise, even last year in the playoffs, to take the Celtics to 7 games and to see his growth this year, and what he's doing for that franchise, it says a lot about him. And he's 24 years old. His impact on winning is phenomenal.
That's very interesting that you say that, because the belief is that there's sort of been a conventional wisdom. Can they get over the top with him there? Do they need to win for him to stay? And generally the sense that people have is that the reason he may have been frustrated with the reporter who asked the question is that she had written a piece suggesting that they need to win the whole thing in order to entice him to want to stay. But you don't see it that way.
I don't see it that way. His teammates rave about him. I think the way who he is and how he plays will attract players to go there too.
Well, I'm going to say this. If he stays with what he's done, he's going to get what they call a super max contract.
Right.
And if he goes somewhere else, he's going to lose $50 million. That's the end of the story right there.
He's going to be in Milwaukee.
He's going to be in Milwaukee.
There we go.
Then let's talk about him as a player in a different regard. Because he is the guy that when people say, well, if you could start a franchise with any one player, his name probably comes up more than anybody else's. And he has made himself from what he was, that skinny kid that we saw there in 4 years ago, into this guy who is chiseled and awesome now. But we saw some of the flaws in his game, some of the things he is missing. What does he need to add to the repertoire to take it next level next year?
I think the big thing is the free throw shooting. That has to improve. I liked what he did with his three-point shot this year. You can see he's improved that significantly. He's a lot more confident, and I think it'll get better and better as time goes on. But every year, this guy has come back significantly better, and you don't do that by talking about working, hanging out, doing okay. This guy is in the gym working, and that's why he's improved.
Before I give my comment, is it me or everything Tibbs is saying is pre-social media?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like anything with social media is just this bad thing because he's old school and I love him to death.
Yeah.
But Giannis is going to have to get a mid-range jump shot because what the Toronto Raptors did to him in this series was played zone. Okay? And they dared him to make that shot out front. And I think, like Tip said, he shot the three a little bit better. Okay? And my last point for him, as far as his development going into next year, he has to be a better passer out of double teams. And he saw that a lot in this Toronto series. And, you know, he had some turnovers that, you know, he shouldn't have had. So those are the two things that I think
LeBron early on in his career, now LeBron always had the passing component.
Yeah.
But his shooting improved each year. And I think we're going to see the same thing from Giannis.
Yeah. That's the trajectory. And I would agree with the notion that the level of work this kid has shown you, the improvement he's made. People talk about him like he was the first pick in the draft. This is not a guy anyone saw coming. So the way he has developed his game year by year, if he just adds the pieces you guys are talking about, he does legitimately become the best player in the sport. We'll talk more about it as we go. Meanwhile, back to some NFL conversation because there's significant stuff out there. Last week, the New York Jets held their first offseason training activity that was open to the media. It was also the first time new head coach and interim GM Adam Gase publicly spoke since the firing of the former general manager Mike Maccagnan. Gase dismissed rumors that he played a role in that firing and said the Jets are still in the early stages of finding his replacement. Let's talk to a man who knows what it's like to be the general manager of the Jets because he was once. Mike Tannenbaum rejoins us here. And Mike, as we have sat back, and Lord knows I've yelled and screamed about this enough, what has been your biggest takeaway from all the rumors and chaos that we feel like we see surrounding the Jets lately?
Well, you know, two things come to mind. One is the ultimate irony for Mike Maccagnan's legacy is the two most important decisions that GM makes is the head coach and the quarterback. He may have gotten both those decisions right in Sam Darnold and Adam Gase. So we may look back a year or two from now and say, wow, what a great job he did. That also creates a great opportunity for the next general manager to say, hey, your head coach is in place and hopefully your franchise quarterback's in place. So what's really important now, Greeny, is they got to get this decision right. This is an opportunity to make a transformational decision that hopefully they could pair a new GM with Adam Gase for the next 5 years.
Yeah, he made a lot of other decisions, too, obviously. They spent huge money in the offseason, particularly on two players, Le'Veon Bell and C.J. Mosley. I guess I would just ask, the decision to allow him, Mike Maccagnan, to make all those decisions and then remove him, it struck many people, myself very much included, as very unorthodox and candidly not good management. Do you see it the same way?
Well, I would say, yeah, the timing really was unusual because obviously he led the search for Adam Gase, the head coach. Like you said, spent hundreds of millions of dollars in the offseason and then led the draft and then 18 days later was gone. So the timing was unusual. But in fairness, he had 4 years. He didn't lead the team to the playoffs So usually, especially the New York market, Greeny, as you know, after 4 non-playoff years, your job as a general manager is in jeopardy. So the timing was unusual, but the decision I did understand.
Me too. I understood it a lot better on January 15th than I understood it on May 15th, unfortunately. Quickly, on a much more significant topic, today we are spending some time remembering the legendary Packer quarterback Bart Starr, who died yesterday. I know you wanted to share a story about him.
Yeah, what's amazing is you go back to that era, and he actually called his own plays, and they're playing the Dallas Cowboys in the famous Ice Bowl game, and he goes to the sidelines and says, "We're going to run a wedge play here, coach, but I want to keep the ball." And Vince Lombardi is standing there, and he said, "Hey, Bart, you run that play, let's score, and then let's get the hell out of here because we're all cold." So what's really amazing to me is you got Vince Lombardi on the sidelines, and he's allowing Bart Starr to call the game-winning play, and it's really remarkable that Lombardi had that much confidence in Starr. Now, in that era, typically the quarterback called the plays, but he was actually the guy that called the winning play for himself, and they won the championship.
It might be the most famous touchdown ever scored in pro football history. I have a lengthy remembrance of him coming up in a few moments, and we will touch on that.